Hello, everybody. Welcome to another round. I appreciate you being here, and I have no clue who's in the chat. Oh, there we got a few. Gonna have a different crowd this hour. Unfortunately, those of you who were there for the last one, Dave Bob had connection issues and didn't show up until the last minute. So we'll see if we can get him in again a little later. Right now, I have one guest waiting and potentially another. And my brother said he's running late, but my brother always runs late. So we'll catch with him later. I want to introduce you to, some of you know her, some of you don't. Fiona Wolfe, she is her writer herself. Big fan of her opinions. She said kind things about my stuff too. And she's a huge indie supporter, and those are stuff. So you need your mic on, Fiona.
Oh no, I have myself muted on purpose so that way, I'll mute myself when I'm not talking, just because so I don't get some weird feedback on this.
Your fan isn't as bad as what I got, and people are patient with me. I got dogs, I got milk trucks, I got all kinds of hillbillies running. I'm in the middle of nowhere, but lots of vehicles going off. So don't worry about your fan. You're fine. And thank you for coming.
It's Florida. We're already like 85 plus degrees. Oh.
Well, I'm up far north, and it's going to hit 90 today, so it's a little weird here, but I'm happy with it. I like living here, even if it's a small town. So before we start talking about my stuff, tell us about you for those people who do not know you, because I've known you for a while, and we kind of corresponded a while back, and I follow you on Twitter quite a bit.
Yeah, so good old bird side of conflating opinions, yeah.
Right.
But no, I'm mostly writing Far Shores of Zot, which is a Sword and Planet adventure, and I also have my current Uplift Protocol, which is like a mishmash of everything I ever loved. Basically, space fantasy. Just because I'm not more of a nuts and bolts person like most hard sci-fi people are. I just want consistency. So if you say magic works a certain way, just keep it consistent. And, superheroes are already kind of like a mixture of sci-fi and fantasy anyway. So it's like one part superhero, one part space opera, one part space fantasy, and 2 parts crazy adventure. There you go. And it's all influenced by like the pulps, older TV shows. My cutoff for most TV shows is like 2010 before they start getting by the numbers like, oh, we care more about soapboxes. That sort of thing.
Right. So you notice the formulaic method to creating nowadays as much as everybody else.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, Uplift Protocol though is probably going to be my favorite series, but I'm also trying to look into who's being starved the most in reading land, and that's usually guys. They hardly write fiction for men anymore.
Wow. For a few years, I have deliberately avoided reading anything sci-fi or fantasy, except for I'm a big fan of Tchaikovsky with the Witcher stuff. But there's been a couple things I pick up and I dropped it right away because I don't understand the writer. Not that it's not language that I don't understand. It's the way they present it seems very juvenile. And they come from some of the bigger companies. So the only one that I really liked in sci-fi recently was, and did you ever read Ian Douglas?
Ian Douglas.
Space Marines and Star Carrier.
Okay, yeah. Star Carrier I'm more familiar with.
Yeah, I've read that whole, well, I got the last book and I've been sitting on it for a while because I keep writing, but
although he did do recently where the Nazis got abducted by like aliens, I think, or some sort of that angle, like an alternate Earth history, which I do enjoy that angle, like a what if scenario. But no, he's written a fair amount of stuff,
Right. Let me see. Oh, I got a note here. We're going to be joined by somebody else that I didn't catch. So let me get a link for him real quick. I'm going to have to copy yours.
There you go. Oh, but I'll be right back. Apparently the hamburgers are done. I'm going to go grab
one.
There
you go. That's okay.
Because we grill on Memorial Day.
That's important. That is one of life's necessities.
Yes, meat is what's for dinner.
All right. Dave Bob, you're hooked up. You should be. I think it's the right one. If it isn't, just yell at me. Oh, and guess what? For those of you who, before we bring Dave Bob in, I mentioned that, and his camera's not quite centered, that I have a brother. His name is Alan, kind of like the guy you know from England, does the music there. He's centered up. He's, before I let him on and you get to meet him, he's probably very inspirational to me. If I was to pick anyone to be my brother, I was fortunate to grab my brother Alan, and he got cleaned up and was done with his surfing today. He does it every day, so I'm gonna bring him in. There he is.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good, Tom.
Let me rearrange this so that I can put you guys up top. Fiona stepped away for a minute. There's another gentleman I'm going to bring in just a second. But to let everyone know, before the books ever got published, my brother read it and encouraged me quite a bit, more than words can say, and I tell him that all the time. But the purpose of this is to let people know your honest opinion about what I've done. And in the future, if I could use anything for print or for voice commercials, you don't mind me doing that, do you?
No, not at all.
I didn't think you would. I know you are. All right, and one more, Dave Bob.
Good afternoon.
See, I told you I'd bring somebody in who's a little bit more senior than you. Dave Bob is used to being the more senior of the group, but Dave's been a friend of mine for a while, and he you finished reading it again today, didn't you?
Yep. Right. Enjoyed it.
Okay, well, let's start off. Alan, I don't remember. I just remember I shared the book with you before it was printed. Why did I do that? What was going on? And what were your thoughts on it when you first got it? Because you got an unedited version.
Well, when I first read your book, I was, well, there's one part I was upset with you with. I still am a little bit. You killed April.
Yep.
And Clemens, was that her last name?
Clemens, yeah.
Clemens?
Yeah.
I thought that was uncalled for. But Edric he had a very nice life without her. So
yeah. If there's mild spoilers, don't worry about it, people. It's okay.
Oh, I won't say anymore.
Honestly, I don't mind spoilers.
Sorry.
I've never been one for like, oh no, you gave away the twist. It's like,
All right, so this will be the spoiler hour. If you guys want to get little tidbits, that's fine.
Your book, so I didn't know that.
No. I'd say maybe half of the people that are there now, and then I'm more anticipating it to be shared with other people later on than I am right now. So if there's spoilers, don't worry about it because I'll yank them out. And
well, let me introduce you to someone else right now.
All right.
Can you put your head in here? She didn't know she was going to come on.
Hi, Tom.
Hello.
I've
They don't know my name either.
Huh?
Some of them don't know my name.
Oh, that's right.
It's okay. I don't use it in the circle of friends that I have around here. There's a Tom King that tries to be creator, but he destroys people's intellectual property. He is an assassin of common sense, and people don't like that name. So I use the other one.
You're gonna have to edit us out because we're obviously just all over. But I'm a big fan of the Revolution series. In fact, I just finished the prequel, Children of the Directive. And what I love about your...
We can't say anything.
Oh, I know.
No, I'm not.
This is a spoiler.
I'm going to say what I love about your work is within this hugely imaginative story, you walk away with these principles that just apply to life. And I love that. I think that you've done a wonderful job of doing that.
I didn't know you read it.
I've read every one of them.
Oh, jeez. Well, I didn't know you got children of the directive because I shared that with Alan not long ago.
I loved that.
That one should be out in print 8 months from now, maybe. So you'll be
And
able to.
it would be helpful to read that first, in my opinion.
You know, I debated that whether or not I was going to release that one first or not,
I can
because
see.
I was talking with Dave Bob earlier, and he said something that made sense, but it's explained in the directive, and it's kind of like what you were saying, that when you
Yeah.
read about Edric, it's like, well, why is he the way he is?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're
So you're in
fabulous.
good company, Dave.
Us older people, we usually have similar opinions.
Hopefully,
No, it's a viable way to tell a story. You don't have to give the reader every little nook and cranny in the initial book. You know, you can roll things out so that way the mysteries keep people coming back.
Now, see,
that's true.
He's a writer, and I appreciate your opinion.
Yeah. Because I
All right,
love
Good point.
No, I didn't mean to chase you off, Chris.
No. I'm just changing position there.
Oh, okay. All right. So you got it. You started reading it. What were your first impressions, other than this came from your brother, Alan?
Well, my first impressions of your book was the quality of how you can describe things, your descriptions. I don't remember a lot about taking English, but isn't it called similaries or something like that?
Similes,
Similes.
metaphors.
Yeah. You do that beautifully, and I just I can actually picture very distinctly what everything's looking like in the background in events as they're taking place. And not only is everything so descriptive, but you bring up emotions too within you. And to me, that's a real quality of, I think of an author. And then, I'll just talk about the very first book. I had no idea you could do that. You could write like that. And then after reading, 3, 4, I'm just finishing your very last one, and you did something else too that upset me, but no, not to mention.
Oh, Marcus, you mean?
Yeah. That's you.
Prologue or the epilogue, and then talk with me.
Yeah. But anyway, one of your books, I think I told you made me cry. And it's hard to do sitting by yourself to bring out that type of emotion in a person. And in the very first book, I was upset. You made me upset. But then 4 books later, you brought tears to my eyes. And I'm not, I'm older. I guess it's easier for me to cry, but your work's moving. And I've read some really good books. And I've read some books that have been published in series that I think are pretty good. But your writing style, you're right up there to me with all of them. And then the concepts of you just coming up with these things.
The creative ability is
Right.
astounding.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what's the book they made into a movie, and it was science fiction.
Oh, we got several hundred to choose from.
Yeah, I was going to narrow it down a little bit.
Geez. Forgot the writer's name.
Was it Frank Herbert?
No, it was. No, he. You didn't realize this battle. You thought it was going on in his mind. Ender's Game. Yeah. And I've read some of his books, but your books are every bit, to me, as good as those books. And I'm not saying that because you're my brother and I love you, but I think anybody that reads your books, you'll see that, and they get better and better. So
I
I can
appreciate
talk a lot
that.
about your books, and then Chris can
Appreciate that.
talk a lot about them too.
Well, one of these days, when you can get past the epilogue, I'll get you to read The Blood Witch.
Oh,
Because our sister liked the book, except that epilogue or the prologue is it's pretty gory, pretty dark.
yeah.
And I know that's all you've seen of it, but we'll get there. Thank you. Chris, anything to add to that? I'll get you in a sec, Fiona.
Well,
Chris, before you go, I'm sorry. You have to watch Chris. Chris is the smoothest talker on the planet. And she says things so nice, and she could be insulting you or telling you it's garbage, and you think you're smelling flowers. So with that in mind,
I don't
wonderful
like
sister-in-law.
people at all. But I appreciate that you attribute the ability to me. But I was always surprised at the characters that you can create. I think that's what makes a great storyteller, are the characters that they can come up with. And you even managed to make AIs full of personality, and so you had a great, diverse, wide cast of characters that I feel like the reader could empathize with. And without saying too much, you are even able to let us empathize with people who are, say, caught in the directive. How did that happen to them? How did they get to that place? But then, and so that's the kind of understanding where you just kind of can take that with you and, apply it to life in general. And I agree with everything Alan said. I love to hear hear your descriptions. And I love the places. I felt, Tom, that the places in your book were as important characters as the human or AIs. Those places, Pigs Beta. I mean, all of these places, having a home on Mars or how they lived there. I thought, how could you think of all of this? I felt like I felt like I was traveling the universe when I was reading your books. And I would love to hear from other people. I don't want to talk forever.
We'll stick with the ladies. Fiona, it's been a while since she's gone through it, and but she's for those of you who came in late, she's quite dynamic. You follow her, and you've got to have an incredible intelligence level. But go ahead and tell us your impressions.
Basically, thank you for not making all the AIs like, oh, kill glitch, destroy humanity, bad. Because I know that's an overdone angle, but it's comforting to have AIs that don't want to destroy us.
Yeah.
Because I know it's an easy way to create like internal and external conflict to make sure that the enemy is like this overwhelming swarm. But I think it's a bit more interesting to see where the AI is just as trapped as Ed is in some ways. I'm like, oh boy, poor Ed, you're about to have a field day as far as like the opening of the book goes.
Right. And that was something I wanted to key into as well, was because in the Stellar Union, for those of you who don't know, like I said, this is the spoiler hour, they had outlawed AI. Where we run into Big, who's a different case. There'll be other ones in the future, like the droid. You'll learn about her in the next book. There's, just like with humans, you're going to find good and bad. And again, and I think, Alan, I might have told you this, the people that are in the books, and this is why it was so easy, Chris, is because they are people that I know. I just took their personalities and stuck them into fiction. So I cheated, I guess.
Well, you could also mix and match, like people like give this person, they're really impatient, but they're also, that's the thing, like a lot of modern stuff doesn't give people enough virtues. They just pile vice upon vice into these characters, but there's no like redeeming quality. You have to have a balance. I think that's like a more concrete way to make even a cathartic, motivational kind of hero is you have to have some balance in that person, because that's a more popular kind of setup or archetype. Because I've noticed in most fiction that is basically broke away is they don't really want to see a kind of Superman archetype anymore, even though that's starting to swing back around because people do want to see something wholesome. But the cathartic motivational heroes usually get they're like the ensemble dark horse that basically overtakes everything because they have enough flaws where people feel like, oh, this person's down on my level. But in reality, for most fiction, you need all sorts of archetypes into the series to grab more people. Because not everybody's going to want to see another Byronic kind of hero who's like sad and mopey. They probably want to see somebody that is like the more self-motivated like sidekick that's like, get out of the dumps and get moving, hero. That's why you need an ensemble cast that can cover a lot of that gamut, like even say the old Babylon 5 show. That's what they did. They had different character archetypes in there that people could latch onto depending on what they preferred.
Right. And that's something I deliberately did with Edric too, because you can have your superhero main focus, but those so some of you have gone through more of my stuff. You notice he slowly goes into the background, even though he has more abilities than everybody else. He's not necessarily the main focus. Dave Bob, your turn.
Well, I'm a sci-fi nerd from back when I was 4 and 5 years old, starting to watch Outer Limits and that type of stuff. But what I like about your universe is that the visuals it brings to mind when I'm reading your stories. Reading to me is much more satisfying than watching a movie or anything like that, because you can picture what's going on, and you have such a vivid description of things that my mind goes to what you're telling in the story, and I see it in my mind, and it's beautiful. And God, I love the tech in this stuff. I mean, you have the I can't remember what they call it. Their little personal programming thing, and they can.
Oh yeah, personal provider. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes anything that they want. If it's got a record of it, it can be instantly made. And I love how you even have a type of transporter, but it's got a little kink in it, and I like that because it's not perfected. And your folding mechanism for moving around in space, that's something I haven't ever really run across. What I really like is I have read thousands of science fiction books, and yours is pretty original. I mean, on almost all fronts.
Yeah.
Thank you. I tried. That was people ask me to write fan fiction for this and that and the other, and I've only done it once in a short story because I don't like playing in other people's sandbox. If I wanted to do something, Alan and Chris will know I try and stand out. I don't follow the crowd most of the time when it comes to things that I do. It either has to be I have to overdo myself or I don't do it. Don't get into personal history, please. They know things about me.
Well, the
Great
biggest thing,
Good things.
the biggest thing is a lot of new writers will get so hung up on like, I got to be 100% original. It's like, no, take the building blocks from what's come before, and then the originality comes on from what direction you take those blocks.
No, I agree. I totally agree, because in the book, you'll know that I have several different weapon types, and I design those to work according to normal principles, like a laser would go at the speed of light. So distance is a big deal. The further you are away, the less effective it would be, and it takes a long time to get there. Where I tweaked the disruptor weapon to where it actually became a long distance weapon, or Here's a big spoiler. For those of you who don't want to hear it, don't listen to the next few seconds. The gravity weapon, which is unique to sci-fi. It isn't anywhere that I've ever heard of. I don't know of anybody that knows that you can mass manipulate gravity to do damage to other targets, whether pulling it apart or crushing it. So yeah, I tried very hard to make it something that you don't see anywhere else.
Or at least not as often. The only place I've seen where they use like gravity wells and even some kind of like gravity type weapons is the Out There game. That's mostly a text based and then with some visuals. Like it's a kind of like a what do you call it, roguelike in resource management, but it's about this astronaut that gets stuck out into deep space and it's so many millions of years in the future, and he's like one of the last regular humans left. And you have to try to get back to Earth or whichever other ending you're working towards. So, yeah, I mean, it does pop up sometimes, but yeah, not as often as you think.
Gotcha. Well, I didn't know, so that makes
No, it's fine. But like, there's like just like a lot of this stuff that doesn't get really on the mainstream radar. You know, a lot of other independent developers are using less known theories, or or if they want to add like a magic component to it, that's what they do too. Because not all of us are physicists.
That was one thing too. I try to keep everything at a high school level when it came to physics, so that I wouldn't alienate anybody by being either too simple or too complicated. Okay, I got a question for you guys. You can think about it. We're going to start in reverse order. Dave, Bob, I'm putting you on the spot. You kind of answered this question, but I want to go through it again. This is for commercial purposes in the future if you wanted to help, but be honest, please. What was, and you mentioned a little bit about it, what brought you to focus your imagination more? What aspect of the book? Was it a person? Was it a location? Because Chris mentioned Peg's Beta. We revisit that place a few times in the books. There is the Paradise Planet. The name eludes me. I should know it. But anyway, what would you consider, Dave, Bob, the thing that kind of, because that's important to me when if you're going to read something of mine, your mind better open up and take you to places that you hadn't been before, or I failed.
Yeah, well, for me, it was the locations. The space station where they first went, up on Luna. And then from there, as they were traveling and they got to the planet where he met his compadres, the lady and the gentleman. And, that was kind of like, almost like a rogue planet, where there's, a lot of unsavory type characters there more than anything. And then going to the lab where they found the aliens and that lab, that whole lab area, that really caught me. I love the way you described that and everything, especially where the planets were and around the 3 stars and that type of stuff.
Cool. All right, Fiona, it's your turn.
Okay, well, the biggest thing that drew me in for Evolution, at least, was the way DT and Ed were constantly bickering with each other. I know it might seem a bit stereotypical, but usually when I look into books, how the characters interact with each other usually gets me to care a bit more, other than the setting trappings. Like this, caring about the setting will usually come later for me. So my biggest draw to most books is how do the characters play off each other.
Okay. Well, no, I'm glad I impressed you with that, or at least held your interest. I appreciate that. All right, Alan and Chris, or Chris and Alan, you guys choose. Whoever wants to tell me, where did your imagination go the most easiest when you were reading?
Well, out of all the things, to me, it's always the characters. I mean, I'm personally, I won't go see a movie if I don't like the actor. They can say it's really good, but if some actor's in it that I don't like, I won't go there. Your characters, I love goodness in people. I really love how you brought out May's life.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's like the triumph of good over evil. And it was done beautifully. And she's not flawless by any means, but I love your characters. And the story, all the stories and things are good, but that's just always been my, like Louis L'Amour books. I love Louis L'Amour books because his characters, the heroes are heroes. And I love a hero. And I love people that would sacrifice their life for the life of others. You have these marvelous characters. One of them, Marcus, is uncalled for. But we can't agree on everything. I didn't write the book. I would have done that.
Finish it.
Yep. Don't be like George R.R. Martin. Don't leave people hanging forever.
I really loved your writing ability to take us in unexpected places. I didn't feel like your work was predictable at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, even if we don't like a turn something took, but there were a lot of great things that happened too. That's unexpected, delight. So I do love the fact that you're creating a story and we can expect some twists and turns and surprises and revelations. And I think one of the other participants just mentioned tech, but I just thought you created so many things that I thought, wow, how did he ever think of that? Because now, how do you pronounce Telek? Is it Telek?
Telek.
Well, that gives us superheroes. That's that superhero thing because people have these abilities because of their Telek. And I love the way that amplifies the idea that we as human beings, we have our gifts. I like that idea that we can have these type of gifts, not like that, not like superhuman, but something that's going to give us an increased ability to, be strong or to bless other people or whatever.
And it only works on good people.
Yeah.
It works on everybody, but that extra gift, they become stronger, their minds work faster, they live longer. That happens to everyone. But the extra mental ability, regardless of who it is,
Yes.
Is something that you have to be a good person. Yeah.
That's such a delightful concept. I mean, that was so fascinating to find out what people's gifts were. I loved the vestige, of course. I loved them. And that was like another unexpected surprise, their existence and what they do. And I love May because, I just finished reading her story and I liked the way you helped May to put her own bad things that she did in a perspective of why that happened and let her open the door to being, another May. I loved that. I loved that.
And it wasn't easy either. It wasn't one of these things where, you see something or you get the magic item or what have you. She had to grow.
That was it. She had to grow and we got to be a part of that. And that helps us grow.
Right. Well, I appreciate that very much. So side question, again, this is spoiler hour. So if you don't want to hear this stuff, for you, and this I'm specifically Alan and Chris, Fiona knows some of it. Who is the main hero? If you were to pick one, because most people think Edric, and could be maybe.
I don't know. I'd go with May.
I would have to say, well, I'd go with May and Edric. I mean, to me, they're co-heroes.
Well, it's because I've read your Children of the Noir. I mean, he's not even in that book, really.
Children of the Directive?
Oh, yeah. No, Echoes of Noir.
Echoes of Noir is.
I might.
If you're the one you're reading right now, where you don't like what happened with Marcus, is Echoes of Noir.
Yeah,
And
that
one. I gave details, subtle details, all throughout that he's there. You think?
Oh yeah, you know that he's in the background, but he's not.
Okay, Nesh ends up in a spacesuit after her ship got blown up, and they say that that suit should not have survived as long as it did. She should have been gone.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, and then you go to Steven's son at the very end, where his ship does things that it's not supposed to do. There's little things like that. If you pick up, you can find out he was in a long haul.
La 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 la.
No, honestly, so far with what I've listened to with your channel and what I've read with Evolution, I think it's more. There's no really one hero that stands above the other ones. It's an ensemble cast, which
Yeah.
in books that's harder to pull off because people expect one big main perspective or point of view to anchor them. But depending on what kind of book you're going for, what kind of story you're going for, sometimes that doesn't really serve that particular plot or story. Sometimes you do have to jump around to other characters to flesh out the setting or whatever the plot or the stakes are.
Right. Because those of you who've read the first book will know these two characters, Janice Graves and Stephen Price. And you think they're kind of secondary characters, but when you get into the second book, you're going to see, holy moly, now they're taking on major roles. And I didn't like leaving anybody behind, especially because there's somebody that will be on later today whose favorite character is Janice. Simply because you want a super cop, you got Janice. So it just, thank you, because if I was able to bring that out in different people, then that means I'm actually doing it right.
The one thing I can think that's kind of closest to what you did with Evolution is that Hyperion Cantos set up the first book in that I think it's like 3 or 4 books where Dan Simmons has a bunch of different POV characters, and you don't really know how they tie into the story until much later in the book. Because you think he's just randomly jumping around, but he isn't. He's framing the whole thing a little bit based off the Canterbury Tales, but I only got about halfway through the book because I was just, my mind just locks onto different things when I'm reading. So, it's just potato. Everybody has different preferences.
I really like what Fiona just said about having the ensemble heroes and the ensemble of villains. I mean, I do agree with that. That's really one of your offerings in this whole series. I really do like that.
I appreciate that. Just from my experiences, when I worked as a chiropractor, I was fortunate in a way. In some ways, it seemed more of a burden than anything to have seen in some place by Detroit a massive amount of diverse life traumas. There was one child, and you will see her in some of the main characters, a little bit of her in it, and May has a little bit of her. She was, when I first saw her, her mother has a whole redemption in her life as well. She's a wonderful person who started off in really bad shape. But this little girl was adopted by her and her father. Her father had separated from his girlfriend, and this little girl was court ordered to stay with the mom. The mom was a drug user, abused the child. They brought her in one time, little 4-year-old, I think she was 5 at the time, lifted the back of her shirt, and I had to get a camera because there was scabs on every one of her little vertebrae where she had been drugged up the stairs, trying to get her out of the way so mom could do her thing, whatever she was doing. It took years, but going through the courts, I did a lot of testimony. They did a lot of heartache and work. They were able to get her away from the mother. The social worker was thrown in jail because she was trying to protect the mother. And then the parents were able to, and I call them parents, were able to adopt her. There was and some of you know, I talk about a Secret Service agent that I worked with who would share things that dark secrets of things that these people see. And I will never give his name, but he told me things that I never thought was imaginable that people did to other people. Really dark stuff. That comes out in some of the books where you think, why is he pulling this up? What relevance does this have? And you think nowadays we're in such an advanced society where people are supposed to be in such a way, and yet there is abject depravity going on. And I lightly touch that compared to some of the things that I both saw with video as well as heard and know of what some of our politicians are doing. So I had that to draw from to be able to create. I've also had, like those of you who may have listened to the next two books, there's a character, Alan Vox. Vox. My brother. So, sorry, he means a lot to me.
I actually like the covert side of it too, with the agents, not the unseen. Those are just pure dicks. But the the covert side, kind of like the CIA or whatever, that interests me too about the book.
Yeah.
Deniable operations. Woo!
Well, I thought of it being because Earth was supposed to be a perfect society at the time, and yet there was hidden things going on with different businesses, corporations, to where the government kind of need to keep an eye on them to make sure they weren't hurting people. And that's where the CIB, the Central Intelligence Bureau, came in, and that's where Steve and Janice and another person that it's no surprise it didn't fare well. Dale Rodriguez, where they came in, and I like that side of it too. The one I'm working on right now, those of you who started paying attention, Doorways of Noir, it's going to get into the whole culture of the Stellar Union, which I didn't touch before. And some of you say I describe things, and you imagine. I deliberately don't get too much into it. I put an emotion there, and I use words and a little bit of visuals to put that emotion in there, so you go there. I don't take you there. If you go through it and read it again, you'll see that I kind of sprinkle a little bit and let you do the rest. And I think that, for me, that's more effective. I'd rather not have someone tell me a doorknob is designed this way, looks very fashioned with the keyhole.
Yeah, a lot of recent stuff goes way too much into detail. Like I used to enjoy some of the sort of truth stuff every once in a while, but he could chew the scenery, and it's just like sometimes you don't need 20 pages to describe one scene. You can just have a few lines and then set what you need to say for that particular part of the plot, and then keep moving.
All right, we're getting close to winding down, but I did want to ask you a couple more questions. We'll start back with my siblings. Was there anything that you missed that you wished you knew more of that maybe I might be able to add in the future if I get time?
Now, I'm trying to think of something. I don't have an answer that's popping into my head.
I don't really understand the question.
Well, here, let's, Dave Bob was talking a little bit about the CIB. Some of you know the directive. There is the Signians, who most of you don't know. Is there any aspect anywhere in the Union, like if you were an alien that came to Earth and you started seeing TV and saying, well, that doesn't make sense. I need to learn more about that.
Oh.
Difficult question, but it might help if I write something else.
The only thing for me, I think that would help in your book.
I'm not bringing people back to life.
You brought that.
Well, like
No.
a directory of some sort. It was a little hard to keep all the characters.
Yeah, if he had like in
Oh,
the
like a what do you call it? Like a casting list, either
Exactly.
or
Just
the back of the book.
You're racing through the story because you're just enthralled. Yeah, like just like, oh wait, was she with the CIB or was she with the director? I used to go back and
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably put something like that even in my own books. Eventually, I'll probably put in like either a list or appendices or something where it's like, here's some of the common terms and like here's the list of the characters if you want to keep track.
Yeah, I did that with the Blood Witch, not necessarily who everyone was, but there are maps in it. There is a pronunciation guide since some of the words are unusual. There is a table of contents. So there, and then some symbols that are going to continue on with the series, like the Trodair family has the gold cross, Deathwind has the skull, the healer mages have the sideways sun, and Nature Caller has a design tree, which is an interesting story because I actually found the artist who did it. He's a great guy, and he's kind of helped me a little bit. Dave Bob, what would you think?
Well,
Things you wanted to learn
yeah,
about?
I'm kind of like Alan. I thought a certain scientist died a little too quick, but honestly, I'm sure it's coming. But big story is something that I'm interested in, and how he's progressing with his intelligence, and the artificial intelligence side of it. Since he didn't start as an artificial intelligence, he was kind of like almost infected with it. But and he's also an organic being, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes.
All right, thank you.
There's always that thematic element of, is it more man or machine, or is it a happy union of both? The world may never know. Yeah.
I like their bond. It's more than a person and their pet, more than a person and their dog. Those of you who've had dogs know what kind of a relationship a person will build with that, where you have someone that has independent thought. Maybe it's rudimentary, but because of Tillich, they can share emotions, not just talk about them. They can actually feel what each other's going through, which I think is
Yeah, that's pretty vital to having a stable relationship. If only everyone had that power.
All right, let's go ahead.
Might be a two-edged sword.
Now that I think about it, the one series that I know did a little bit of that was Andromeda with Sorbo and the ship. Captain Dylan Hunt and his lovely Andromeda ship.
Right.
Yep. Oh man.
Okay, final thoughts. We're getting close to an hour, and I need to get up and get moving around. So, Fiona, anything you wanted to let people know if you were to be my salesperson?
Let's see. If I were to try to sell the series, I would say takes what people know about technology and even standard space opera tropes, but goes off into a direction you would never expect. Kind of like down the rabbit hole, Alice. Essentially.
Thank you.
I think it's just a vivid universe you've created, and the ability to go into this and see what's going on. And as you said, this is going to be of a period of 4 million years. I mean, that right there just draws you in.
Yeah, and the last one that Alan and Chris just read, it gets much more heavily into what happened many, many years ago.
Yeah, and there's not too many books, shows, or otherwise that really go into that kind of time jump, whether forward or back. Again, the few I can think of was Herbert's Dune, where you saw what happened once the God Emperor came around.
Right.
Man, Leto and that golden path. Woof.
All right, Alan, Chris, final thoughts, things that you, I'm here to sell books, to leave the money for my kids. Let Jerry, they know my son, they let Jerry have all the IP when everything's said and done. What would you do to help him out? What would you say?
I don't.
I would say, in my opinion, like all great stories, this story is told in a, as Dave Bob said, a vividly created setting where you feel, because it is space, you feel like there's just no end or limits to what can be imagined. And yet, because it is, to me, a great story, it could be set anywhere. To me, that is the definition of a great story. Take away this imagination, take away the setting. What have you got left that you walked away from and you walked away with? And I feel like this is a story like that. You have characters there, just because they're set in this space and time that you didn't even imagine. It's just so enthralling. Yet you can relate to them. This can have meaning, and this can have more than entertainment value. And yet it's just so subtly offered, so that it's this great entertaining experience. But it's also, to me, it's a solid offering to each individual who reads it.
Thank you. Final words. You're the man.
Well, I don't. In order, I don't know. Like my thoughts, if it would help sell books, but to me, it just shows you how good a person can be and how much impact he can have on other people. And I mean, how could you sell that concept? And then how an organization can be so evil, to want to try to, or
individuals who get together.
Yeah.
Evil individuals get together.
I mean, you have one race that wants to destroy everything, they just want to be the only persons. And if you don't stand up to them, who's going to do it? It has, to me, everything. It's the type of things that I like to read about, is how good will prevail in life, and you might not think you're that person to begin with, but if you're not that person, who's going to be it? I don't think, especially with like May, I don't think she was, well, I take that back. She was pretty intelligent.
Well, Edric, he thinks he's an average guy.
Yeah. Edric's a good example. But how do you sell that? I don't know how to put that into words, to sell that to somebody to make them want to read it.
Just as long as you're honest and you tell your feelings, that's all I want.
Well, I guess I could put it this way. Evolution is a breath of fresh air in the postmodern landscape of everyone is shitty and shitty byproducts. You actually have genuine good and evil in this series, which is vital.
And hopefully people recognize that as bad as some things look, if you focus on it, focus on the other, you will find wonderful people and wonderful things happening.
I like the plucky sidekicks that decided not to take the Telek.
Oh, you're going to learn more about them too in the future, Dave Bob.
Loved Matt. I loved Matt Mays. I think that
yeah.
All the characters I read so far, he in his few moments has left such and his friend kind of going to what Alan said about how much impact one seemingly unimportant character can have. I just loved what you did with that, and that has really made a huge impression on me. And
That book is brilliant.
and that's the power of love,
Yeah.
Show another directive. Yeah, I can't wait till you see the symbol up there. That's the one from the directive.
Oh.
You guys haven't seen that. The words on there are pretty small, but it says, what is it? Perfection, excellence, and domination. The directive motto.
I need to get me some of that pre-release.
All right, remind me. I will see what I can do for you, Dave Bob. Thank you, everyone, for being here. You're going to see bits and pieces of this since everyone has given me their approval. That will show up now and then. This is a long haul. These stories are of people that I've known that are set in science fiction. I don't want them forgotten. I don't want their personalities forgotten. And I want to leave something for my family that they can be grateful for. So thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll be back again at 4 Central Time. I was informed that we're going to have some really good people there as well. And we're going to sign off. Any of you have any more questions, bring them up for 4 o'clock. We'll catch you later.
Thank you
Thank you for the invite.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Bye-bye.